It is my distinct honor and privilege today to introduce you to my mayor. When Brenda Cameron Cooch called and said, could I do it? I said, absolutely yes. And then she phoned back a week later and she said, I hear you write a little poetry. I was like, oh, yeah, mm-hmm. She said, do you think you could write something about the mayor? So, I don't know if the mayor can hear or see me, but I wrote him a little love poem. I haven't said anything yet. My dearest, mostly right, most honorable Mr. Mayor, a few short months ago, we met over concrete pathways, blues riffs in the distance, sound check 1, 2, as water rushed over rocks past our sweet Prince's Island Park. How fitting as I had met my Prince Charming. Yes, you had me at the sweater vest debate of late July. Sweet dulcet tones, deep chocolate eyes, your delightful misconception that a sweater vest could look good tucked in. Oh, my dearest, mostly right, most honorable Mr. Mayor. Confident, forward-thinking, and brazen, you are the new Wild West. And the way you encourage me to be my best, saying time and time again that together we create great things. You push the envelope, explore innovation, and already make things better. Articulate, urban, informed, and optimistic. You had me at inclusion and community consultation. More bike lanes, less sprawl, you said. Density, diversity, and a sense of discovery, you said. Yes, I will marshal the Pride Parade, you said. I'm embarrassed to say that before you, I had never participated in a municipal election. But you were just the golden purple cow, social media maverick, born east, grown west, sweater vest, wearing Ivy League educated baron I could sink my vote into. And today, when you talk about innovative and creative cities, I still get weak in the knees. When you talk about building better communities, keeping Calgarians moving, and transforming government, when you use words like sustainable, walkable, and livable, when you say things like the future is ours to make, my dearest, mostly right, most honorable Mr. Mayor, I still get weak in the knees. You will always be the political demerara to my high-maintenance coffee, the socially conscious sprinkles to my salted caramel mocha, and the business-savvy masala to my breakfast parfait. And I will always be delighted to call you my dearest, mostly right, most honorable Mr. Mayor. If you were able to join us earlier, you heard people talking about how they were jealous that they were not Calgarians. You have been described as absolutely authentic. Please welcome to the National Summit for the Charitable and Nonprofit Sector a passionate Calgarian, accomplished business professional, and a community leader with a solid track record of getting things done. He's run a large nonprofit, been a trusted advisor to corporate leaders, and literally wrote the book on Canadian cities. Not only Calgary's mayor, but Canada's mayor, the Honourable Mayor Naheed Nenshi.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you all for participating today. Now, what I've just learned is that you should be very, very careful at all times in striking up a conversation with the person sitting in front of you in line for a music concert because you never know when they're going to be introduced to you at a national seminar. And I might also point out that while the debate was on sweater vests, and I maintain that I am entirely correct, I have to tell you I didn't say sweater vests look good tucked in on me. It was more of an abstract discussion. But I'm very happy to be with you. I'm so sorry I can't be with you in person today. And I'm very happy to spend some time with you talking about the role of nonprofit organizations in building vibrant and resilient communities. Now, what I would like to say is that even if I weren't mayor, I'd like to think that I would be at the National Summit talking to you about this stuff anyway. Because what I used to do, as many of you know, and I know a number of my former students and colleagues are in the room there, is that I still am, actually. I'm just on leave, as the university keeps reminding me. I was a professor of nonprofit management, and in fact told that I am the first tenured professor of nonprofit management in Canada. So when I accepted the invitation to speak with you today, I did so a little bit more with my professor hat on than my mayor hat on. I don't know if Marcel was expecting that you'd get a lecture on Nonprofit Management 101 over lunch, but I can't help it. First, let me start by telling you a story. And I want to tell you a story of the 10-year plan to end homelessness in Calgary. The important part of this story is who was doing the telling and the kind of story that they were telling. Some years ago, 4 years ago to be exact, the city of Calgary came together as a community and brought in a new plan to end homelessness. This was a striking plan and a different plan. And one of the reasons that it was so important is because it was the very first time that our community had talked about ending homelessness rather than managing the problem of homelessness. I'm usually one who's not that interested in semantics, and if you start me on a discussion of whether we should call ourselves the nonprofit sector, the voluntary sector, the third sector, the social benefit sector, I will get frustrated with you very quickly and I will walk away. But in this case, the semantics are important. And the reason they're important is what we had discovered was that we had built a sector that was very, very, very good at doing what it was designed to do, which is making sure people didn't freeze to death in the winter and making sure that people were fed and clothed. And we were very, very good at that. However, what we also learned was that the issue of homelessness in Calgary had completely been decoupled from the economy. When the economy was bad, homelessness grew. When the economy was good, homelessness grew. And in the time between when I graduated University of Calgary in 1994 and when I came back to Calgary in 2001, the population of the city had grown about a third. The homeless population had grown 10 times. Clearly, the system wasn't working. And at its heart, the 10-year plan to end homelessness is based on a very simple idea. The best way to help someone who is homeless is to assist them in finding a home. Earth-shattering, right? Shocking. But it wasn't the basis on which we were doing our work in the past. And I think that's really the point where I want to begin with you today. And that has to do with how we focus on outcomes in building a better community. Around the same time, two reporters at the Calgary Herald did a wonderful story as part of the Calgary Herald's Christmas Fund program, which is the annual thing they do to raise money at Christmas time. In fact, I'm a little bit late with my deadline for writing my column for the Calgary Herald Christmas Fund this year. Ooh, thanks for reminding myself. But this column, to which I'm referring, was a really beautiful piece where these two reporters followed along a woman who was experiencing homelessness and her child. And they spent 24 hours following her through her day to try and give us a mirror, an image into what it's like to experience homelessness when you have a child. And it was a beautifully written piece. And it's impossible to read that without having a certain amount of empathy, a certain amount of sympathy for this woman and her plight. But there was something about the story that didn't strike me as quite right. And so I took the article to one of the classes I was teaching, a class on program planning and evaluation, really a class on systems thinking. Second or third lecture, the students hadn't been very immersed in this yet. And I just gave them the story with editorial comments, and I said, I want you to discuss this among yourselves and think about what it says about our system and how the sector, the nonprofit sector, is working within that system. And sure enough, the students came up with the same thing that I had come up with. And one of them stuck up her hand and she said, you know, over the course of the day that we follow this woman through with her daughter, she has been touched by 5 different social service agencies. She has been touched by an innumerable amount of volunteers. And not once, not for 1 minute over the course of the day, was anything done to help her out of her situation. She got a lot of meals and warm clothing and things to keep her daughter busy, but no one was helping her with the root cause of the problem. And the root cause of her problem was this. She and her daughter and her son had been kicked out of their apartment over a landlord dispute. In Alberta, you generally have to pay first and last month's rent to get a new place. She had the money in her pocket for first month's rent, but not for last month's rent. So she was short, say, $1,000. And instead of figuring out a way to help her bridge that $1,000 gap, we put her into a shelter system where she had, at that point, she had been in the system for 6 months. The cost of the shelter system, conservative estimate, is $100 a night. So clearly something isn't working and wasn't working for her. The other interesting thing that one of the students said that day was that this is a student from a recent immigrant family. And she said there was a part, there was a part of the story where it became clear that this Muslim woman didn't have one child, she had 2 children. And she was moving around with a 7 or 8-year-old daughter through her day, but the son, who was 11 years old or something like that, had moved in with his aunt, this woman's sister. And this student of mine said, you know, in my community, if we knew that someone had a sister and a niece and they were letting them be homeless, it doesn't matter if you've got a really small place, doesn't matter if you can't really support them, that person would be ostracized in my community. Because in my community, you don't do that. Family bonds and community bonds are much more important than any minor inconveniences of putting the person up. So how is it that we've built a system where we're allowing people to give up on that individual responsibility? Now, the reason I raise this is because the 10-year plan is actually working incredibly well. We're 4 years in, we've got 6 years to go, and we're making a bunch of changes at a number of different levels. Shelter use is down for the first time in anyone's memory. Thousands of people are being housed through rapid exit programs, through programs that deal directly with getting people into homes and seeing the lack of a home as the root cause of the problems that people are facing rather than a symptom of it. But the nugget, core of why it's working so well is simply this. It is focused on the outcome. It has given up on ego and program and wanting our programs to be successful, knowing that we have the right model, and we're going to keep fighting for that model and make sure that we've got the funding and the grants and whatever else to continue that model. It's focused entirely on outcomes. Give up what we believe in, give the work back to the sector, and let the sector focus like a laser on the outcome of getting people housed and ending homelessness. And I think that that is really the key here. And if we unpack that, then we start to see the importance of how the nonprofit sector works to create the outcome of vibrant and resilient communities. Because of course it's important. And if you were expecting me to give you a lecture on how important the nonprofit sector is and how you do great work, I'm not going to do that because you know all that already. You're at the National Summit, for God's sakes. You understand. And you don't need politicians to tell you how important you are. Unless, of course, that statement of how important you are comes with a check for. But that's not what today is about. Today is about really thinking about that role in a broad way, of how together we as a sector, I still use the we, even though I'm in the public sector now, but how together we as a sector work to make sure that we're building the kinds of communities that are fair, that are just, that provide everyone the opportunity to succeed. And yes, government has a role to play. We've got to get the right policies in place. The grassroots community has a role to play. But the nonprofit sector also has a vitally important role to play in the middle around developing programming that makes sense. And so when we start thinking about how to be outcome focused, it changes how we think about issues like collaboration and how we work together. It's not just about cooperation and getting along, but it really is about being collaborative across the community in thinking about how change can actually happen. And that means that change in a community, that building a better community is the responsibility of everyone in that community, of nonprofits in the social sector, of arts organizations, cultural organizations, schools, of community groups, of governments, of large and small business, of all of it, coming together to figure out how we can build that community better. And I believe that really comes from being focused directly on the outcomes that we're trying to achieve and really understanding how all of that can work together. I'd like to give you another example. I had the great opportunity recently of going to the 100th anniversary of a school in downtown Calgary called Connaught School, named after a former Governor General and British noble. Beautiful sandstone school in the heart of downtown Calgary. And it was their 100th anniversary. And they invited me and they sang a beautiful song about Calgary's mayors, which I quite liked, almost as nice as the poem at the beginning. But the point of this is 240 kids in that school. Those kids come from 51 different countries. 42 different languages are spoken at home. There was one kid I met, beautiful singer, great kid, 11 or 12 years old, grade 6. He had been at school for a grand total of 6 months in his life. And I was looking out at those kids, and I realized something. Those kids are going to be just fine. We've saved them. They have had the opportunity to come to a country where they have the opportunity to be anything they can be. They were lucky enough to come here young enough that we can catch them, we can put them into an excellent public school system, we can make sure that their English language skills, and I believe that language training is the single most important thing we can do for minority communities. Their language is going to be fine. We caught them. And so when I went up to make my speech, I didn't address myself to the kids in that room. Instead, I addressed myself to the moms who brought their kids to that assembly and to the older siblings, because we haven't saved them. And because for them, life could be very tough. And it would be easy for them to defer their dreams of what they could be in this great new country and say, you know, it's okay. I can work at a job that's below my skill as long as my kid can study. I can not allow myself to build the community the way that I have the assets and the ability to do so because my kid can go to university. And the message that I had for those moms was that, no, we as a community want you to succeed because we believe in the dignity of every individual. We believe in the ability of every single person to make change and good change in their community. And that was really my message to those moms. But for that message to be true, it means that that is one of those common values that we all, as people in the nonprofit sector, have to share. That we're working to make sure that we fill in those cracks, that we catch those people that fall, that we make sure that we are focused on the ultimate dignity of every individual. So how do we go about doing that? Part of it is absolutely about being laser focused on our outcomes. Part of it is about thinking about collaboration in new ways. The third important, I would argue to you, is to make sure that we do not let our ego get in the way of giving the work back to the people, of letting people who live in a community take on the role and how I try and do my work. And in fact, it's been a little funny. One of my favorites, there, are we back? Sorry, I just had a little error there. One of my favorite moments of my time in office has been when someone sent me a note saying, how come all these inner city neighborhoods have all these great festivals? We should have more festivals out in the suburbs where I live. And I replied to that note and said, great, that's a terrific idea. Here's a list of resources. Good luck organizing the festival and make sure you invite me because I'd like to come. That wasn't exactly the response that I was expecting. But it really is about allowing people the power to use their own hands and their own hearts and their own souls in order to make good change in the world. And I think that that is absolutely vital to the work that we do as an organization. So let me tell you about a little program that I launched a few weeks ago. It is so simple, and you are welcome to steal it, but I think very powerful. The program is called 3 Things for Calgary, and the idea is very straightforward. We are encouraging every Calgarian over the course of this winter, and I know this is Calgary, so that could be between now and next August, sweater vests year-round, but over the course of this winter, by the way, it's +9 today, so let's keep with that. Over the course of this winter, to do 3 things for the community. Those could be big things. Take on a new volunteer role. Join a board of directors. Join your local community association. They could be small things. My favorite example is the guy who said, I'm going to have a winter barbecue, but I'm going to have it in my front lawn instead of my backyard. And I'm going to invite all my neighbors that I've never met. But here's the key. We have lots of fun ways to share the 3 things you did. We've got a Facebook site and a website and a blog. And people can go on and give ideas and form communities and say, I really want to make a change in terms of playgrounds in my neighborhood. Who has some ideas on how to do that? So that's great. But the real power of this is that your 4th thing, once you've completed your 3 things, the 4th thing is to convince 3 other people to do 3 things for the community. That's really how we make it viral, by using people's own skills and strengths in order to be able to build the better community that they all dream of. And if this works, that means we have the potential to have 3 million acts of community building, large and small, happen across the city over the course of this winter. And that's pretty exciting. And that's really what it comes down to. How do we, as people invested in the sector, open ourselves up and say, let us use those skills, those hands and hearts and souls and minds that exist within our community in order to help us build that community that is so much better. And for that to work, we've got to know where we're going. We've got to know what that destination is. We've got to be focused on those outcomes, and we have to be able to get there in a way that brings everyone along, that brings everyone along in the community with their ideas, their hearts, their minds, and their ability to make change. And that is how we build those vibrant and sustainable communities that we all dream of so very badly. So I wish you a wonderful summit, a wonderful opportunity to talk and get great ideas, but I want you to remember the work doesn't end here. It doesn't even start here. The work continues at the summit you're at, and I hope all of you will go back to your communities and make sure that you continue to do that great work that you do in building those communities. I said at the beginning I wasn't going to suck up to you, but I will for a second. And this is important. I want to thank every single one of you. I want to thank you for making a good and a noble choice. And that is a choice to make your career in helping other people in your community live a better life. It's a big deal. And we thank volunteers all the time, and we should thank volunteers all the time. But sometimes we forget to thank the people, that administrative cost in charities, who have chosen to make their career in a way where you get to wake up every single morning and know every single thing you do that day is making life better for somebody else. That is an amazing thing you've done. It's an amazing choice you make. I thank you for it, and I wish you a great summit.
Very inspiring words. Thank you so much. That's not Mayor Nenshi, that's me. But hopefully he can still hear us, and I'm sure he can feel the love from the audience right now. So thank you very much, Mayor Nenshi. And I'd like to invite Sue Tomney, CEO of the YWCA Calgary, to deliver an official word of thanks on behalf of Summit participants.
Oh, I hope he is listening, because I'm going to start with just a quick little story on the celebrity status. The celebrity status of our mayor, so that before I have a couple of comments to say to you, Mayor Nenshi, and that is this past weekend in our social page, there's always pictures of events that are going on around town. And 2 weeks ago, we had a gala, inaugural gala for the YWCA of Calgary, the Y Whisper Gala, and we had our guest speaker was Michael Jean, the former Governor General. And so I took my daughter to this, and there was a picture in the society page, and of course the social page has all these pictures, and the mayor was there as well, but the big picture was actually myself and my beautiful 14-year-old daughter Abby with Michael Jean. And she took this and she went up to her Facebook page, and I looked on her Facebook page and she had held it up and she had her face behind it, holding it up, and had that as her status, and her status was, "I'm bigger than Nenshi." That's the kind of impact you have on our youth. So, those of us, Mayor Nenshi in Calgary, know that civic engagement was a key pillar in your election platform. We also know that you live the belief that for every one of us who gets more involved in our communities are made better. As evidence of this, you spearheaded a new process around the development of our city budget that engaged 23,000 Calgarians and heard what mattered to them and at what cost. As well, through your Civic Engagement Committee, you launched what you spoke of here, the 3 Things for Calgary movement, which is all around what we as individuals can do to improve the community and the lives of those in it. Your clarity around the role of local government in addressing social issues on the ground in the same way that the sector does has created a new environment for partnership and collaboration. By defining local government as being the humane level of government that serves people where they live and focuses on meeting basic needs for clean water, excellent public libraries, recreational opportunities, and the arts, affordable transportation, and safe and secure housing, you are leading the way in how government and the sector can work together to create a great city. At the YWCA of Calgary, we were most impressed at how in your first year you championed secondary suites, pushing for changes to the development process to allow safe, legal basement suites in Calgary communities, now permitted use in all new communities. As well, the poverty reduction strategy. You directed $200,000 from the city's innovation fund, together with a matching grant from the United Way of Calgary, towards the development of a municipal poverty reduction strategy. On a very personal note, I was most impressed and frankly grateful for how you started a new dialogue with the youth of our city during the election. I'll never forget my phone ringing in the days leading up to the election, and it was my then 20-year-old son. And anyone with teenagers knows that when the phone rings, the series of events usually goes, "Hi, Mom, how was your day?" Pause. You put up with whatever you said. "Well, can I borrow $20 because I need to?" This day, however, he broke that routine, and he said, "Hi, Mom, I'm out with my buddies, and we're talking about the election, and specifically about this guy, Nenshi. And what's my take on it all?" Wow. That was a breakthrough for me in terms of dialogue with my teenager, and was really a watershed moment, and one that I'm so grateful for because you started the conversation with our youth, and that is progress. Mayor Nenshi, you have said that you are not the new face of Calgary. You are merely a reflection of the real face of Calgary. Thank you for your leadership and for your remarks here today.
Thank you.